And he said, how should I ever introduce you? I said, well, I don't know, sir. I said, you can call me CT, you can call me Dr. Wright, you can call me Reverend Wright, you can call me Bishop Wright, you can call me anything you want to, but just don't call me Jeremiah Wright. I'm calling upon all Republicans to let your little light, each of us in our own way, let our light shine all over the world. We call upon the Almighty to bless the Republican light as it shines all over the world.
Our purpose in remembering the Buffalo Soldiers is to motivate us to keep struggling until all Americans have an equal seat at our national table, until all Americans enjoy every opportunity to excel, every chance to achieve their dream, limited only by their imagination and ability. Let us also be determined that the most important dream, that American dream of progress and full equality, will gain a new strength, a new meaning, and a new tomorrow.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ringing, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We've got to realize the challenges that we face in this country. When the voting's over, God help us to get back together, and God help us to do the things that He's called us to do. Now, I know that after on November 7th, that a lot of you, like me, were out on the ledge talking to the pigeons. And my problem was they were talking back to me. And they were saying jump. And I didn't have any real compelling reason not to. And it was a real challenge for me. And so I don't want to underestimate or try to put a happy face on the absolute lunacy that the American electorate expressed on November 6th. But let me say to you that for the sake of our children, for the sake of everything that is good, for the sake of humanity, we have to pull ourselves together and go forward again like we really mean it, because, you know, we've talked a lot about how much was at stake in that election. The sad truth is that we were correct. But now we are in a desperate struggle to try to make this country wake up a little bit. Now, we just attended our retreat to the Republican members of Congress. And there were some pollsters there that said, well, you know, we've analyzed the thing. They had some good things to say. But there was one of them there that said, you know, the Republican Party is just going to have to adapt and change some of its positions. And I'm reminded of a quote from George Bernard Shaw. He said, you know, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world, whereas the unreasonable man tries to force the world to fit his idea. That's a paraphrase. But therefore, all progress that's made in the world is made by unreasonable men. The truth is, if we stand there and just try to adapt ourselves and jettison everything that we believe, just so a Republican can be at the front of the majority government in this country, we will have failed our children and grandchildren and everything that we hold dear. If we do as Ronald Reagan did and take those polls and see where the people are and see why they're wrong at times, and be able to articulate the great noble ideas, to do as George Washington said, let us raise a noble standard to which honest and wise men can retire, then we can turn this country back in the right direction and be the kind of party that we were called to be from the born of time. My message to you is very simple. There is still time to save this country, because there's something that resonates in the heart of all of us. You know, when we first became a nation, the founding fathers didn't say, well, listen, if you'll join the Continental Army, we'll give you better tax breaks. It'll be a better employment rate. The employment taxes will be way down in our Army, not like that British Army. And sometimes we try to compete with the Democrat Party on what we can pay to get people's votes. When really what we need to be is saying, you know, you join our Army, there's a good chance you're going to get killed, because we're up against the greatest military force in the history of mankind. And the chances of us succeeding and coming home safe are pretty low. But if we do, we will build a beachhead of freedom for this world and this nation, that all generations will look back and say that we did the right thing for our children. And that's what we call you to. And you know what? It worked. And if it worked once, it'll work again. So I leave you with this quote that I think should be one of the mantras of us as we go forward. We have to articulate principled, noble ideals that will inspire people and light in the fire of liberty that caused this country to come into place in the beginning. And I think Mr. Lincoln stole it from somebody, but he said, let all the ends that you aim at in life be your country's, your God's, and the truth. Be noble. And the nobleness that lies in other men, sleeping but never dead, will rise in majesty to meet thine own. Let us raise a noble standard and go forward and either win the day or let the last gasp of the Republican Party be victory. Thank you.
Dr. Paul Gosar.
I was a young man and I got a chance to meet Ronald Reagan, and that's exactly what he alluded. There was this positive man, this humble man, this asking man, what's going on in your world? Yeah, junior high student actually had the future president of the United States ask me what was going on in my world. And if you think about it, the magic of our Constitution in this great country, we lead by asking. Asking you to be incorporated, asking you to belong, asking you why you don't belong, for the constitutional aspects of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you think about it, when we take our oath of office, every single member that takes that oath, you are asked to defend, to protect this great nation and its Constitution and liberties. They ask you, and you willingly, unbiasedly join. That's what we need to get back to, the excitement of being conservative, excitement about this great country. And last but not least, what we also ought to do is we ought to do it with a smile. Because a smile just ticks the other side off. A smile is an invitation to a solution. It tells you that I'm positive about me. There's a positive outlook. Come join me. Come join the solution. That's what we ought to do. It's great being a dentist. You know, some of our famous adages came, drill baby drill. They had a little meeting. I thought I had to bring my chair and my drill back to DC. That would be kind of fun. But I leave you with one more thing. Our Constitution, our founding fathers, built our Constitution in this country on unalienable truths. I'm going to give you an assignment. It's a bad assignment, but it's something you need to understand, because you need to understand the other side. It's the autobiography of Barack Obama. And in there, he does not believe in those unalienable truths that built this country. If there isn't something that can unite us, that will. That should. That is everything. Folks, this is the greatest country there is. Take a look at me. I am that American dream. I got to start 1 of 10, got to be a dentist. No one gave me anything. Built my own practice, a very successful practice. Got a chance to live the American dream in politics, and here I am. It's too great to pass up, and it's too great not to pass on. Folks, thanks for coming out today. We can do this, but we got to do it together. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure how I feel about being introduced as the troublemaker. You know, the amazing thing is I always thought I was the good kid. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this, but like in high school, I was the kid with the pocket protector and the briefcase. For those of you who know that, as the chairman was mentioning, I got thrown off my committee about 6 weeks ago, but I had my new committee assignment. I'm in charge of janitorial supplies. Now, you laugh at that. It's the single most powerful position in Congress. Oh, no, seriously, this isn't for laughing. If you control toilet paper, you just wait and see who has the real power in D.C. How many of you actually drove here today in the rain? Thank you. Thank you. That's what you call a committed crowd. Our crowd should be committed. It's always one or the other. Both Trent and Paul touched on something. We are happy warriors because we're defending, I think, God's truth and this Constitution. But be prepared. The next 4 months are going to be pretty wild. You know, we, as the conservatives, we've put together a plan to finally, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use some Washington lingo, and Trent, if you can come up with a better way to phrase this, but it feels like for the last couple of years, Harry Reid and this president have not played fair. And there's this game where we do what's right, we follow the rules, we follow the Constitution, and this Senate jams us. They wait till the last moment, they wait till the televisions are exploding with the crisis, the world is about to come to an end. And we as Republicans walk in and say, you're damned if you do and damned if you do. And we're tired of it. Realize there is a reason the United States Senate has not done a budget approaching 4 years. They're terrified to let the American people understand how much trouble we're in. Well, finally, we're going to make that Senate do a budget. And by doing that, maybe finally we as the conservatives get to be on offense on telling the story of what's really going on in this country. And I know some of this gets really geeky when you're going to see the talking heads get up and say, well, there's the Budget Reconciliation Act of 1974 and the 203Bs, but there's a whole pattern here where we have some spending controls that are in law. And the Senate is going to have to build a budget within those. And all of a sudden, you wait about 6 weeks from now, and when you turn on MSNBC, who watches MSNBC? Okay, you do realize I have one hand here. No, she watches it to know what the bad guys are saying, right? Well, you also know it's the one network with more letters in its call sign than viewers. They are going to go nuts when they see the fact that we as Republicans, we're going to produce a budget that balances at the end of 10 years, and we're going to see what the truth comes out of the Senate in the fantasy world they've been living in. I got to give you one number just because I keep running it in my head and it terrifies me. If I turned to you right now and said, how many Americans today are on welfare? A means-tested welfare program. Okay, there's what, about 318 million Americans in our country, right? If I came to you and said it's 110 million Americans as of last week are on welfare programs, and this isn't Social Security and Medicare, 110 million Americans, so over a third of our population today. And January 1st next year, we had another 25 million under Obamacare. This time next year, we're going to be approaching about half the population. This isn't a game. Each of us, you know, we had a tough election, but we still control the state legislature. We did great in many of our counties. You know, counties like Pinal County and others, we need to hold up as prizes. They did amazing. But the bad guys have overreached. When they start trying to attack the Second Amendment, when they start destroying our brothers and sisters around this country, the battle is on. Let's fight smart. Let's fight, for my non-LDS friends, well caffeinated. But let's do it with our heart and soul, you know, marching with the word in our heart, because we have 2 years ahead of us with the new leadership we're going to have at the party, with a delegation, a Republican delegation that actually likes each other now. I mean, we're pretty much world buddies, which is actually somewhat unique for Arizona's history. Let's go get them. Thank you.
Come on, everyone. Come on.
Thank you. On March 18th, I will personally argue before the United States Supreme Court to defend our right to have elections in which only citizens, not illegals, vote. The Ninth Circuit actually ruled that we are not permitted to ask people registering to vote to give evidence that they're citizens. The Obama administration argued against us in that case. They not only refused to defend the border, they want illegals to vote. I hope to defeat them before the United States Supreme Court this March. I dare say there is literally nobody in this room happy with the way our presidential election turned out. The consequences may be disastrous. The Obama attack on the Second Amendment is proof of that. Imagine gun control from the same group that created the Fast and Furious scandal that resulted in the death of Patrol Agent Brian Terry. We have to prevent that. Obama can't get something passed through the constitutionally mandated legislative process, he tries to do it by executive fiat. There is a word for that, but it is not democracy. Fortunately, there is still the 10th Amendment, which protects the powers of the states, and state attorneys general defend the 10th Amendment, because Arizona's on the Arizona's on the cutting edge of many issues. I have been and will continue to be on the cutting edge of defending the 10th Amendment. Let me give you an example of success in that regard. You remember when Obama could not get card check through Congress. So Obama had the National Labor Relations Board threaten 4 states that had state laws banning card check. All 4 states refused to be intimidated, but only one got sued. Care to guess which one? Arizona. So it became my job to defend workers' rights to secret ballot elections, not just in Arizona, but for the entire country. We won summary judgment against the National Labor Relations Board, thereby protecting workers' rights to secret ballot free of union interference. I am personally arguing 2 cases before the United States Supreme Court in 4 months, which I'm told is something of a record. A few weeks ago, the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously in our favor on a case I personally argued last October defending Arizona against more intrusion by federal courts. The Ninth Circuit had imposed an indefinite stay on execution in the case of an especially brutal murder on the grounds that the prisoner's mental state had deteriorated and he could no longer help his lawyers in their habeas corpus case. I appealed to the United States Supreme Court. I argued that victims' families have a right to see that justice is done in a reasonable period of time. There are studies that show that that helps in the healing process. In addition, it doesn't do a state any good to pass laws if it can't enforce them. I won that case in a unanimous ruling overruling the Ninth Circuit. The case will reduce the interference of federal courts in the states enforcing their laws. I have personally argued on behalf of Arizona in State Superior Court, State Supreme Court, Federal District Court, the Ninth Circuit, and as mentioned, the United States Supreme Court. My critics at the Arizona Republic have argued that I should not spend time in the courtroom. They say the Attorney General should manage things from some ivory tower. I disagree. I remind them that the first word in Attorney General is attorney. That is my job. I inherited an office where my Democrat predecessors tended to force agencies to inadequate settlements rather than fight in court. That is bad policy. I brought in experienced lawyers to defend Arizona, not cave into the whims of liberal special interest groups who exist to sue Arizona taxpayers out of their hard-earned dollars. And I will continue to argue cases personally to convey the message to the lawyers in the Attorney General's office that we will not force inadequate settlements, and that we are hungry to go to court to fight for the citizens of this great state. Thank you.
Our great treasurer, Deucy. Deucy, everybody.
The second thing I want to say is thank you to everyone in this room for your support and advocacy for fiscal responsibility. If you think of where our state was just 2 short years ago, we had a bank account that was negative $730 million. We had the largest structural budget deficit in the country of any state. Worse off than California, worse off than Illinois. Fast forward 2 years to today, and we have over $2 billion in that same once empty operating account. In addition, we have a balanced budget and $450 million in a reserve account earning interest. So I'm hopeful that my friends, Congressman David Schweikert and Congressman Paul Gosar, can take this information back to their friends in Congress and let them know it can be done at the state level and it can be done at the federal level.
Please welcome Superintendent of Education, John Huppenthal, everybody. John Huppenthal.
Tom, it is great to be with you here today, and thank you for your service over the last couple of years. It has been a tough time for Republicans across the nation, and it just truly is astounding when you think of what we've done in Arizona relative to the rest of the nation. When I talked to him about the incredible numbers that we're seeing as a result of policy, he says, people don't pay attention to numbers. But you know what? I think that some of the independents do. And I want you to have a few of these numbers to talk to independents when we're in our persuasion. Because we're in a battle for the independents with the Democrats. And we can win that battle if we can get the truth out and get past the media. Over the last 20 years in Arizona, we reduced our top income tax rate from over 8% down to less than 4.8%, while Phil Mickelson struggles with a 63% rate out in California. Our residential property taxes have now declined. We're in the lowest 10 in the nation when we compare ourselves relative to other states. Arizona is a great place to raise a family in which you can afford to raise a family. In pro-life legislation, we've done more than almost any other state to advance the pro-life agenda.
Senate President Andy Biggs, everybody.
It's just simply wonderful for me to get this opportunity to be with you today. What a beautiful sight you are. Committed Republicans, committed to protecting freedom. That's the legacy we want. I wanted to just also take one brief second and thank Chairman Morrissey and his Cracker Jack staff for their efforts the last 2 years. And so if you join me in thanking Tom once again.
Our great sheriff, the legendary Joe Arpaio, everybody.
Yesterday I filed to run for office. So if they all think that I'm a lame duck, I'm not a lame duck. I have to thank my wife, Ava, and we've been married, we've gone on 56 years. I'm losing track. So I like to do things different. So I had my wife swear me in. Not at me, she swore me in. So that was a nice touch, I think. She deserved accolades.
Robert Graham, 1,000 votes for 69.93%, and voted for
according to the best of my ability. So help me God.